Listen, we are back with another reaction. We got SpongeBob Conspiracy 3. Shout out Alex Bale. My man is going crazy with these. This is the Mrs. Puff theory. Let's get it.
So when the metal hit his mug, he just sunk in place. 100K Holla, chillin' Bahamas. Come home to your crib and throw in your mama.
What is good, HollaSquad? We are... Alright, it took a second. But the latest squad on the YouTube platform. Listen, today we're back with another reaction. I'm here with my guy. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Man, Kyle, Kyle Harris, aka KK taught me.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I'm Phil.
I'm Phil. I'm Phil. You try to say it with a bass in his voice, boy.
Say it with your chest.
Listen.
Little ass nigga.
Look, now, where would you rank SpongeBob in your top like
list
cartoons?
on Nickelodeon cartoon? Well, I don't know. I want to subject it. I was a Cartoon Network type cat. You know, that's how I move personally. But on Nickelodeon, SpongeBob is in like number 2.
Number 2 to what?
Number two. Because back in Nickelodeon, Rugrats was my shit. I was a Rugrat cat. You know what I'm saying? I know.
Listen,
like,
nobody on God's
90s
earth,
baby.
besides Kyle is putting the Rugrats over SpongeBob. Now, where do you rank SpongeBob?
That's kind of hard for me just because, to be honest, like I actually didn't like SpongeBob growing up. I didn't.
Get out the video, bro. Phil, leave now. Get out. All right, look, we're about to watch this conspiracy about Mrs. Puff. So make sure y'all smash that like button, hit that sub button. Also, go check out Alex Bale channel. Very, very dope channel.
Avatar, yo, that was on Nickelodeon. That joke was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. It wasn't SpongeBob though. All right, it wasn't firmly grasp it. It wasn't that, bro. It wasn't that. Give me 3 Avatar quotes right now.
Ooh.
Thank you. You know, thank you. Firmly grasp it. Pickle bun, bro. Come on, it's endless. It's endless, bro.
Appa.
All right, look. We're about to hop into this. This is the Mrs. Puff conspiracy. Shout out to Alex Bale. Congratulations on 100K. Let's hop into this.
This is not Mrs. Puff. You may think she's just SpongeBob's boating teacher, but you'd be very, very wrong. For years, she's been running from her dark and mysterious past, but it's finally caught up to her. And behind it all is a mastermind who's been secretly controlling her life and psychologically torturing her. If you guys thought my last 2 theories were mind-blowing, get ready for my biggest conspiracy yet. This is the Mrs. Puff theory.
Look at her.
I gotta start off by saying, wow, the reaction to my last 2 SpongeBob theories has been insane.
100K.
How does she know? Squilliam, you lying, deceiving. Who is that handsome young devil?
Shout out Chris, bro. I think Chris is one of the dopest YouTube channels. Make sure y'all go check out Chris Wilson. That man is nice, boy. His videos are good.
My ridiculously deep dives into the show. I mean, I have to watch so much SpongeBob and read so much of the Wikipedia to put these theories together, but it's worth it because the writers actually take the time to set these things up. Now, a lot of people have been asking, Alex, how do you come up with these crazy conspiracy theories? Well, I always start these theories by looking for the moments in the show that seem to be implying more than they're letting on. Like I've said before, SpongeBob is a weird show with lots of abstract humor, but I can usually understand the intent the writers had behind a weird joke. But then there's stuff like this.
Like a thief in the night.
I hope I still remember how to do this.
Puss.
Hold on, what is that exactly?
Still remember how to do this.
A condom?
That's what it looked like to me.
Now it's a giraffe.
Now it's a balloon.
And it's so confusing and weird that it feels like the writers are trying to imply something beyond just weirdness for the sake of comedy. And nowhere in the show is there more of these moments than with Mrs. Puff. And once I started looking into it, it led me down the deepest rabbit hole I've ever seen from this show. So,
Puff a freak,
let's
she
begin.
Just got an open condom in her
Uh-oh, looks like I'm getting hacked by a hacker. I knew this would happen if I got too close to the truth. Well, it's a good thing this video is sponsored by NordVPN. They're here. You can even use normally only I look like Alex Bale satisfied theories without the fear.
Make sure y'all use Alex Bale, NordVPN, you know what I'm
being
saying?
Hacked. Thanks, NordVPN. Now, without further ado, let's begin the theory.
We like VPNs. Mind your business.
Mrs. Puff is a boating school teacher in Bikini Bottom. She's passed all of her students except for one, SpongeBob SquarePants. He's taken her driver's test hundreds of times, and he always ends up failing it and causing destruction and chaos that usually ends up with Mrs. Puff going to jail, despite it not really being her
going to
fault.
jail
We also
now.
know that she was once married, but her husband was killed by fishermen.
That's my driving teacher, Mrs. Puff.
Mrs. Puff? Oh, she's married.
Oh no, Mr. Krabs. She's single.
Then what happened to Mr. Puff?
She doesn't like to talk about it.
Throughout the show, there are moments like this that seem to be hinting at her having a dark, mysterious past. And in Season 2, Episode 10, No Free Rides, we get the biggest clue about who Mrs. Puff really is.
No free rides.
After SpongeBob fails the driving test yet again, Mrs. Puff has just had it with him and ends up just giving up and giving him his license, even though he never really passed. She quickly realizes that this is a horrible idea and he'll probably end up destroying the entire town.
SpongeBob is a character, yo.
So much destruction. This reporter asks why. Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor who
Remember this clip,
Don't
because
drink
it's
and
going to
drive.
be very important later on.
All
And then
right,
she
all right.
says this insanely revealing line.
What have I done? Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. I'll have to move to a new city, start a new boating school with a new name. No, not again.
No.
Yo. She's not going. You see that face? You see this face right here?
Not again. Come
She
on,
is
it's
not
like they're
going
just
to
begging
jail.
someone to
The
make a
body
theory
will
about
not be
this.
found.
So we now know Mrs. Puff was
She's
originally
not
from a
going
different
to jail.
town.
Yup.
She used to own a different boating school, and Mrs. Puff isn't even her real name. There's something
That's
in her
crazy,
past that she
bruh.
ran away from. Now, there's been some debate over whether she's actually referring to a new name for herself or for her boating school, but I do think she's talking about her own name. Because if she's trying to run away from something in her past, she wouldn't start a new boating school with her real name in the title. Now, when
Facts.
she says again, I don't think she's just referring to starting a new life.
Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. Not again.
I think at her previous boating school, she had a terrible student just like SpongeBob who she prematurely gave a license to, and it led to something so terrible happening that she had to run away and start a whole new life.
That's crazy,
In Season
bruh.
3, Episode 5, Doing Time, we
I
get a
remember this one.
flashback to when she first opened up the school.
Where did I go wrong?
I'm gonna show you where you went
With the
wrong.
opening of my new boating school,
My new
I
school.
pledge that as long as a student is willing to learn, I shall never give up.
Fuck.
Hi, I'm SpongeBob SquarePants.
With the opening of this new boating school, let's keep in mind that this is not her first boating school. Maybe the whole reason she's making this pledge now at her second school is because she gave up on a student at her previous school, and that led to her having to
What was
run
his
away and
address?
start
I'm
a
trying to
new
read
life.
his ID.
She's
I think it was 124 Conch Street, something like that. Bikini Bottom.
pledging to never
Gosh.
make the same mistake again. Now let's skip ahead to one of the newer episodes. Season 12, Episode 21, Lighthouse Louie, where Mrs. Puff has SpongeBob organize all the stuff she keeps in the school's lighthouse. There's lots of interesting
Season
things
12?
hidden in the
That shit
background,
looked new.
but the first thing that
Facts.
caught my eye was this file labeled Mrs. Puff. It makes sense for a teacher to have files on all their students, but why would she have a file about herself?
Yeah,
But
how
let's
you got your own
remember,
file?
she's not Mrs. Puff. That's a fake identity she created. And I'm willing to bet all of her fake identification documents are in this file.
That's
Back in
crazy,
Free
bro.
Rides,
Hey.
She just gives SpongeBob a license that she already had for him. So
Sex,
she clearly
male,
makes
hairy,
these
yellow,
licenses and
eyes
would
blue.
probably know how to make fake identifications. But that's not the only hint about Mrs. Puff's
Look at
past.
Mr. Krabs.
There is something in here that
shit.
directly confirms all of this. As SpongeBob swallows
The ring?
Mrs. Puff's junk,
Was
we
it the
see
ring?
something very interesting for only a few frames. Deranged boat teacher makes getaway. 10 seasons later, and the creators are still hiding stuff about Mrs. Puff fleeing her old life. It might not look like it at first,
Yo,
but we
Mrs.
actually
Puff a
get a
G.
ton of new information
care.
from this newspaper.
Mr. Puff is a lunatic.
Authorities with balloon animals.
Oh, that's why she did the balloon at the beginning?
The balloon animals.
What? Oh, my.
So she got party tricks just to distract the police.
Paper. This is from the New Kelp Post, which tells us Mrs. Puff originally lived in New Kelp City. Then there's a caption that reads, distracts authorities with balloon animals. And do you remember that clip from the beginning?
I hope I still remember how to do this.
How to get away from the ops.
Yeah.
So whenever Mrs. Puff makes a getaway or
That's
commits
crazy.
a crime, she leaves behind a balloon animal to distract the police. I'm telling you guys, these writers don't just do stuff randomly. They have reasons for everything. And the most damning piece of evidence from this newspaper
Look at
is
her
actually
face,
the
though.
picture
New
of
Kelp?
Mrs. Puff.
Oh.
Kind of a strange photo, right? We have seen this exact same photo of her before. In the episode No Free Rides, when she imagines what would happen if SpongeBob got his license.
Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor.
This means that this isn't just her imagination. imagination of what might happen. This is also her remembering what happened when she lived in New Kelp City and prematurely gave one of her students a license. And I'm willing to bet that the fish reporting the news is the exact same one who reported about her in New Kelp City. Let me explain.
Like
We know from the episode Whatever Happened to SpongeBob that reporters from the Bikini Bottom News can also work for the New Kelp City News. But the real reason I think this is because of his hair. In the entire show, we have never seen this fish reporter with hair before. Why would the creators go out of their way to add that detail? Because Mrs. Puff isn't imagining him as he looks now. She's remembering him from years ago when he used to have hair, when he reported about her in New Kelp City. Mrs. Puff has been running from her past ever since, and is now forced to relive her experience with an unteachable student through SpongeBob. But reliving this trauma has pushed her to the point of complete insanity. And trust me when I say that you have no idea how delusional she actually is.
She need a hug.
Another running gag throughout the series is Mrs. Puff's occasional nervous breakdowns or moments of insanity because of SpongeBob, and they get more severe as the show continues. At first, she did care for SpongeBob, but in the newer episodes, she literally tries to kill SpongeBob just to get him out of her life. Even SpongeBob just walking up to her gives her severe PTSD.
Hi, Mrs. Puff.
Hit the brakes! SpongeBob! Watch the tree! Laugh! Wait,
Oh, dang, we have no more shots of pain left. We're
These
done.
mostly seem like just one-off moments.
ran out, bro.
And
We
for the
ran
most
out.
part, Mrs. Puff is still a functioning member of society, right? I'm going to show you that she's actually much more insane and delusional than you may think. And some of the episodes she's in take place entirely in her own head. If we're talking about how insane Mrs. Puff is, there is no better place to start than the episode Doing Time. Once again, SpongeBob fails the boating test and causes destruction and chaos, which leads to Mrs. Puff going to jail. SpongeBob keeps breaking into jail to try and bust her out, but Mrs. Puff actually prefers being in jail over teaching him. We actually get another interesting line about Mrs. Puff's past in this episode.
Okay, you can do
We'll
this.
be back with your
You
shot.
can get through
I
this
promise.
without losing your
I promise.
sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
So we know that Mrs. Puff has lost her sanity in the past, probably from her previous terrible student. But it seems like she's recovered since then, except in this episode she has a complete mental breakdown.
This is crazy,
SpongeBob keeps
bruh.
appearing in impossible places until she gets thrown into solitary confinement, where each wall of the room transforms into a giant SpongeBob face. And then the episode ends in a way that's so weird and confusing that it rivals the infamous gorilla episode ending. As Mrs. Puff freaks out, she's suddenly transported back into the beginning of the episode when SpongeBob was taking the test. Except this time, SpongeBob gets arrested instead of
coming down like missiles.
Facts.
I can't believe it. It was all a dream. I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You
You already did your time. I remember that.
She's on drugs.
So what's really going on in this episode? Was
She
the
been set
ending
up
all
the
in her
road
head? Is
multiple
Mrs.
times.
Puff just caught in an endless loop? I think this entire episode is inside of Mrs. Puff's head, and she's actually on the outside the whole time, but she's been imagining herself inside of prison. I can explain. Listen closely to what the police officer tells Mrs. Puff.
I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time. And then revealing she's still in a prison uniform despite being on the outside. So this scene is obviously inside of her head, which means everything we see is symbolic.
Bro, what?
And if we can understand the symbolism of it, we can understand what's really going on with Mrs. Puff. Notice how she's suddenly wearing a black and white striped prison uniform, even though the entire episode she's been wearing this orange jumpsuit. Why would the creators go to the extra effort to draw a whole new prison uniform for her? Well, we've seen her wear this black and white prison uniform before, the very first time she went to prison back in Season 1, Episode 7, Hall Monitor. So when the police officer says, "You've already done your time," he's referring to the first time she went to jail. But why is she still wearing that uniform outside of prison? Well, she may have gotten out of jail, but she was by no means free.
Mrs. Puff
Having to
been
teach
going through a
SpongeBob
struggle,
is a
yo.
Right.
Bro, what?
She's been going through a struggle.
This is tough, bro. This is tough. I ain't gonna lie.
It's called trauma. That's called trauma.
Jesus.
prison in itself. And she manifests that by believing she's in jail and wearing a prison uniform despite being on the outside. This entire episode,
And they
every
came out
time
the toilet.
SpongeBob magically
No, sir.
appears, is all inside of her head. She is completely delusional, and hints that she's experiencing these hallucinations don't stop there. Just 6 episodes later, she goes to a house party SpongeBob throws, and while everyone is talking and having a good time, in the background we see she's literally sitting by herself talking to an ice sculpture of SpongeBob. You can't tell me this isn't intentional. I mean, look at this. Now, back in the episode No Free Rides, there is a very strange picture.
Bro, I don't know how this man comes up with this, bro. This is crazy. Crazy. There's so many things that I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah.
Especially like the picture or the newspaper that went into the trash.
Yo,
well, I think he said that was from a newer episode.
Yeah.
So,
but still, like it just moves so fast that when you a kid, you're not gonna catch any. Even when you an adult, you're not gonna catch any of this. Like
unless you're really looking for it.
She's traumatized. That's one of the women that is crazy. Leave them alone.
Facts.
Inside of Mrs. Puff's home. It's a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff, creating an infinite loop. This is something that has confused SpongeBob fans for years. But like everything in the show, there is a reason for it being there. One of the SpongeBob storyboard artists actually called it the biggest mystery in the entire show. If you think about it, this is just like the end of Doing Time, where she's stuck in an infinite loop of SpongeBob failing the driving test. Because it's all symbolic of what her life is, just an endless cycle of SpongeBob taking the test and failing, and no matter what she does to try and escape, she always ends up back in the same place at the end of the episode. So this picture is another symbolic manifestation of what she's feeling. We even see another one of these pictures all the way in Season 9, Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper. This is something that the show is consistently alluding to. Mrs. Puff is an unreliable narrator, and anything we see with her could potentially all be inside of her own head. In
that
fact,
is
I
wild.
found another episode that takes place inside of her head. In Season 9, Episode 17, SpongeBob Long Pants, SpongeBob goes to a different boating instructor and actually gets his license. But as soon as he does, we briefly cut to Mrs. Puff waking up.
You pass.
I finally got my driver's license!
Lock your doors, bar your windows, it's the end of the world!
Now, this seems like it's probably just a throwaway gag where Mrs. Puff somehow senses that SpongeBob got his license, and it causes her to wake up and freak out. You know, it's a good bit, it's funny, but I have a question. If the joke is that she's supposed to be waking up at the exact time SpongeBob gets his license, how come she wakes up at night when SpongeBob clearly gets his license during the day? Because this entire episode actually takes place inside of Mrs. Puff's head. And this is the only part of the episode in the real world.
Bad Gohan got you.
I don't know what that was all about, but I'm glad it's over.
But let me pause for a second. I'm sure some of you are already wondering if this contradicts my previous SpongeBob video, The Television Theory. If you haven't watched that one, the gist of it is that the entire show is a documentary television show, and everything we see is actually being secretly filmed by scuba divers. And there's a ton of evidence to support it. I'm very proud of that video. You should definitely check it out.
That was fire, bro.
If it's supposed to be from a camera, then how are we seeing things from inside Mrs. Puff's head? In fact, how do we see dreams and flashbacks and thought bubbles? Well, I think the simple answer is that even though we view the show through an objective camera lens, the world itself still follows the rules of a cartoon.
You can never tell another living soul.
Wait, hold on! What's that? My pen is out of ink. Plankton! You'll never get me formula, not even in a flashback.
In the world of SpongeBob, you can imagine something
Roll
and other
his
people can
ass
still
up.
see, record,
Fold
or
his
interact with it,
ass
because
up.
that's just how cartoons work. Back to the theory, we know that her insanity has caused her to live a life of delusion, but if you remember back to the Lighthouse episode, she's also become an extreme hoarder, and looking at her collection of junk is like a look directly into her mind, so there's gotta be something we can learn about her from it. There's a picture of her boyfriend, Mr. Krabs, the hall monitor belt she gives her students, the mean drawings her students make her, SpongeBob's diary, a boating safety helmet. Wait, SpongeBob's diary?
Yeah, I was about to say, why does she have
Why does she have SpongeBob's diary? The last time we saw that, it was safely put away in SpongeBob's library. What's it doing in her lighthouse? And...
Yo, this is... Bro.
Why does she have Squidward's painting? And a table from the Krusty Krab? And SpongeBob's bike? And Squidward's teddy bear? And the hair curlers Mr. Krabs had? And that statue of Squidward? And that diamond ring? And that crown? And that bucket of radioactive waste? And that jellyfish sign? Oh my god.
The whole
Bro, listen. This man, Alex, is the GOAT, bro. The GOAT of making conspiracy videos.
Yeah.
This man is too nice, bro. Like, there's no way. There's no other human being on this planet that could have put this video together, bro.
Mrs. Puff.
Shout out to the writers of SpongeBob, too.
Mrs. Puff has been stealing from everyone in Bikini Bottom. I can even prove that her pet snail from Season 3, Episode 19 was stolen.
My snail is up a tree. I've had her since I was.
Oh yeah, that was somebody else's snail at some point, wasn't it?
No!
Oh.
You've had that snail since you've been a little girl, huh? Then how come that is the exact same snail Squidward had 4 episodes ago?
That's what I said.
I wouldn't let Snelly here play with that mongrel mutt.
You exposed, baby girl.
See, she even has her own papers.
He even has her paperwork. Mrs. Puff clearly stole the snail from Squidward. But why the hell would Mrs. Puff steal all this other junk? What possible use could she have for any of it? We can find the answer to that question by looking at this green hat and this purple jacket. These were gifts Mr. Krabs bought her on their first date, but she ended up feeling uncomfortable receiving them and gave them back to him.
I'm afraid I just don't feel comfortable accepting all these gifts.
Except apparently she's not too uncomfortable to steal them back afterwards. So clearly Mrs. Puff isn't stealing this stuff because she wants to use it. She just steals for the thrill of it. Maybe stealing things is her way of coping with the insanity of her everyday life. And remember, this isn't the first time she's gone insane.
You can get through this without losing your sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
In fact, I have reason to believe that she started stealing things way back whenever she first went insane.
I hope I still remember how to do this.
I don't think she's just talking about remembering how to make balloon animals. She's probably also referring to remembering how to steal a boat. And if that's not enough for you, in a SpongeBob comic book, she actually admits that she used to rob banks, and she wears the exact same ski mask. Mrs. Puff lives a completely delusional and miserable life, all because she has to teach SpongeBob how to drive. It's led her to steal from the people she cares about and completely disassociate from reality. But that begs a very important question.
This is crazy.
If SpongeBob is causing her life to be so miserable, then why does she even keep teaching him? After all the destruction and pain he's caused, she'd totally be justified to expel him, right? I mean, she will literally try and kill him so she doesn't have to teach him, but for some reason she can't just expel him.
Rylan, thank you for the host. Thank you for the host.
To teach SpongeBob.
The mastermind. Listen.
Back to the episode No Free Rides. After prematurely giving SpongeBob a license, she steals his boatmobile so he can't hurt anyone. In the end, this causes her to get arrested and go to jail, but then SpongeBob tells her this.
And besides, the warden says she'll let you go early if you do her a favor.
What's that?
Free driving lessons!
She'll get to leave prison early if she gives free driving lessons. That seems like an oddly specific requirement. And that's not the only time this gets mentioned either. In Season 9, Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper, we get this scene.
If only SpongeBob could pass his boating test, he'd be out of my life once and for all. Unfortunately, I keep getting reminded of the consequences if I get too angry with the little nuisance.
Consequences? Are you telling me that if she refuses to teach SpongeBob specifically, she'll be violating her parole and get sent back to jail? Why does the prison even care?
That's crazy.
SpongeBob? Is it just part of some weird community service? But things start to
Do
get
you feel
really
it now,
suspicious at the
Mr.
end of
Krabs?
Season 7, Episode 5, Summer Job. Once again, Mrs. Puff ends up in jail, but this time she's forced to go to a prison boating school.
Oh, wow! A driver's education class!
Good day, class!
Oh, I must be having a nightmare! What's he doing here?
Dear Mrs. Puff, I'm following in your footsteps and got a job as a
Why is it
driver's
ripped
ed
up?
teacher for the summer.
She's seen it and
Who
got
in
rid
their
of
right
that
mind
shit.
would hire SpongeBob to do this after
Facts.
he's literally destroyed the city countless times while driving? Is this just another one of Mrs. Puff's delusions? Or is the prison intentionally forcing her to be around SpongeBob just to torture her? I mean, look at the way the guard forces her to sit there and listen to him.
Get me out of here!
That's crazy, bro.
And look at that evil smile he has as he watches her endure this torture.
Yeah, I got
There is
your
something
ass.
very strange going on.
Got
with
your
the prison.
ass.
Then,
She got
in Season
little
10,
ankles. Why
Episode
didn't
8,
she
The
just
Getaway,
pick her
Mrs.
foot
Puff
up?
meets a criminal named Dorsal Dan and starts to get romantic feelings for
Dorsal
him.
Dan,
This
any
is
nigga
also
with
while
that
she's still
mustache,
dating
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Krabs. Shame on you, Mrs. Puff. At the end of the episode, they both accidentally land in prison, and the warden puts him in solitary confinement.
Warden, I found this one pulling up outside
Ooh,
the
he
prison.
look like a fucking
Dorsal
weasel.
Dan, a notorious getaway driver. Toss him the clink.
Everyone has someone in high school that looks like
The
that.
notorious getaway
Wait for
driver.
you, my little tender boy.
In or
Fuck
out of
with
jail,
him,
this
too.
prison will stop at nothing to make sure she is alone and miserable. But why? Who's behind all of this? Why would anyone care this much about torturing Mrs. Puff? Who's the mastermind pulling the strings? Well,
Who y'all think it is?
I don't know. Like,
Who
I mean,
could
it
be behind it all?
It
bro?
could be Mr. Krabs, just because like Mr. Krabs actually is kind of crazy.
Mr. Krabs was spending money on her, and she
Yeah,
didn't.
Like-
she turned him down.
Right? Like, dang, he actually spent money. He don't even like to spend a penny. Like, he spent money on her, and like she broke
Man,
up
it's
with
the
him.
newsman.
It could be him. Like, it could be the newsman, because how he keep popping up.
Facts.
And he had hair at one point, and now he don't have hair.
Let's see.
Maybe it has something to do with her old life in New Kelp City. Maybe she crossed someone and they've been plotting their revenge ever since. But I've looked in every single frame of New Kelp City, and there is nothing connecting it back to the prison. I've looked literally everywhere, and there's not a single person from the city that has anything to do with Mrs.
He's about to say, except
Mrs. Puff. Well, I mean, maybe except for the literal warden of the prison she's being kept in. He may be hiding slightly off screen, but that is clearly the same warden of the Bikini Bottom prison. And this isn't some random background character that the show reuses all the time. He is a very distinct character. You can call me out on the Squilliam video all you want, but not this time. But wait a second. If the warden was originally from New Kelp City, then he'd probably know about Mrs. Puff's dark past and her true identity. So why hasn't he exposed her? He's just kept quiet about the fact that one of his inmates is living a completely false identity.
That's
She'd
crazy.
probably even get more prison time when they find out who she
Larry
really
the
is. So
Lobster.
why hasn't he said anything? This is where things get
Larry
very
the
interesting.
beach bum.
We
I
know
thought about
Mrs.
Larry,
Puff
but he don't be there
prematurely
now.
gave a student at her original boating school a license, and that led to them causing chaos and destruction. Maybe this student accidentally did something terrible to the warden, and he's blamed Mrs. Puff ever since. Whatever happened was so terrible that it caused him to move to Bikini Bottom and get a job as the warden of the town's prison. And to his surprise, he finds out that one of his inmates is actually the person he blames for that terrible thing happening. This works out perfectly for him. He can finally get his revenge on Mrs. Puff by making her life miserable. All he has to do is reveal her dark secret, and she'll be stuck in jail for much longer.
That face he made,
Except
I
for
don't think it's the
one
warden.
small issue with his plan. Mrs. Puff actually likes being in prison.
1 day down, 2,528 to go. Oh, that's just shy of 4 years without SpongeBob. I'm going to enjoy this.
That's
So,
crazy.
He comes up with a new plan.
People
Keep
have that
Mrs. Puff's
mentality,
secret
though. They
and
wanna
let her out
stay
of
in
prison
prison
early,
and
but
their
only
cats
under the condition that she has to teach
cope with
SpongeBob.
life in
He's
prison.
literally turning her normal life into a prison. And he makes sure going back to prison to avoid
What?
SpongeBob isn't even an option for her anymore, because he'll make sure that SpongeBob is always in there with her. And he's not gonna let her escape and start a new life like she did in New Kelp City. He makes sure to give her an ankle bracelet that doesn't let her leave Bikini Bottom.
I can't even leave town without violating my parole.
He is the mastermind who's been
She
controlling
is
everything
hurt.
this entire time. But guess what? His insidious plan doesn't even end there. This is not the first time we've seen the Warden character. We first see him in Season 4, Episode 2, Crabs vs. Plankton. In this
Plankton,
episode,
fucking
Plankton
dirtbag.
slips on some water in the Krusty Krab and decides to sue Mr. Krabs for everything he owns. And then guess who shows up out of nowhere and offers to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer?
What I really need is a good lawyer.
Whoa, did somebody say lawyer?
I knew I remember him from something,
Attorney
bro.
at law. I couldn't help but notice that despicable display.
Richard A. Bottomfeeder, the warden of the Bikini Bottom
Bottomfeeder
prison, is
is
also
pretty
apparently a
ass.
lawyer? That's kind of strange. Those both sound like major careers. You usually wouldn't imagine someone being both. Then he says he'll be Mr. Krabs' lawyer completely free of charge.
So, how much is this gonna cost me?
Actually, I won't charge a dime unless we win.
Well, that's
Unless we
awfully
win.
generous of you, Richard. He seems very confident that he can win the case, but right before he goes to court, he slips on some water and says SpongeBob will have to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer now.
Oh, this is gonna be a slam dunk.
Oh no! Mr. Krabs' lawyer, speak to me!
Explain that.
With pain, can't move.
You're gonna have to handle this one, son.
He
Explain
tells SpongeBob that he has to represent Mr. Krabs, even though he himself called SpongeBob a liability.
Actually, SpongeBob, we won't be needing any testimony from you. Why, you'd be more of a liability than an asset.
But it's okay, because
Yo, this
apparently
is
all
deep.
SpongeBob needs to win is
Like,
inside
hold
of
on,
Richard's
this is
briefcase.
Everything you need to win is in this here case. Really? Everything?
Except when SpongeBob gets to court, he realizes that Richard never gave him the combination to the case.
It's, all in here.
Really?
Yep, right in here.
Is there a problem?
Your lawyer didn't give me the combination.
Either Richard A. Bottomfeeder is the worst lawyer in history, or this is all part of his elaborate plan to ruin Mrs. Puff's life. Here's what I think happened. First, he finds out that Mr. Krabs is being sued, and he wants to ensure that Mr. Krabs loses the case because he wants to destroy any chance Mrs. Puff has at finding love. So he pretends to be a lawyer, even offering his services for free, something Mr. Krabs can't resist. He makes Mr. Krabs feel confident that they're gonna win the case, and then at the last second, he pretends to get into an accident so he can't represent Mr. Krabs. Instead of finding a real lawyer to replace him, he tells the most incompetent person for the job, SpongeBob, that he has to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer. And he gives him a case that allegedly has all the answers in it without actually giving SpongeBob the combination, setting him up for a total failure in court. Richard A. Bottomfeeder refuses to let anyone get close to Mrs. Puff, not Dorsal Dan and not Mr. Krabs. This guy has squillion levels of hate for Mrs. Puff. But why? What exactly did her previous student do that warrants this much torture? It can't be something as simple as him or his property getting damaged. It has to be something life-changing. Something like losing a loved one because of the student's reckless driving.
Facts.
And I think the show gives us one last hint about who this might have been. All the pictures of Mrs. Puff's house are very meaningful to her. She's got photos of Mr. Krabs, her pet snail, and of course those infinitely looping photos that told us so much about her mental state. But there is one more photo in this house that might be the key to this entire conspiracy.
Who is that?
That's him, isn't it? Isn't that him?
No, that's not the same guy.
But the thing is that him when he's younger.
What if that's her
but
husband?
That was taller.
What if that's her husband, and her husband, the one who was the light?
Light.
But I mean,
what if that's his brother or something?
But that was a puffer fish. That's a different type of fish.
Why do you know this?
Like I said, I know a lot of random stuff.
In season 12, episode 14, Plankton's Old Chum, we see a photo of someone we've never seen before on Mrs. Puff's wall. There's some surprising similarities between this character and Richard. The green color, the red bow tie, the overall fancy, serious...
What if that was like his disguise? They used to be together.
Appearance. It clearly isn't the same person, but maybe this is someone related to Richard, like a father, a son, or a brother that Mrs. Puff's former student killed. And the reason she keeps a photo of him up is to have a permanent reminder to never make the same mistake of giving someone a license who doesn't deserve it. Mrs. Puff is a boating school teacher who once made a terrible mistake that led to the loss of her business, identity, sanity, and any chance at finding happiness. I like to think that there used to be a time when she was happy, back when her husband was still alive. If only he was still around today, maybe she wouldn't have to face all of this on her own. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Is what I would say if I was done, except her husband is still alive. Woo! Let's do this. In the SpongeBob movie, SpongeBob and Patrick travel to a gift shop named Shell City that's full of dead fish turned into knickknacks and ornaments. Except they end up setting off the smoke detector, which activates the sprinkler system and brings all the dead fish back to life, including a very familiar looking pufferfish hanging from the ceiling. Mr. Puff is alive. Well, wait a second. If he's alive and he escaped, then why hasn't he gone back to Mrs. Puff? Why is she still alone? Because remember, she ran away from their home in New Kelp City and started a new identity. So sadly, Mr. Puff has no way of finding her. The tragedy of Mrs. Puff's story is that her happiness is just a city away, but she can never even leave town because that would violate her parole. Richard A. Bottomfeeder probably even knows her husband is alive and is making sure they're never reunited. As the name says, Richard really is a bottom-feeder. This video took a ton of time and effort to do all the research for, so I really hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for watching, and thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this theory. Go to nordvpn.com/AlexBale.
Yeah, that thing.
See, I DM'd him. He said always watching to the end, so hold on.
Show me something. I gotta see something.
Okay.
Alright, okay. First of all, let's look in the background. Who is the pizza man? Alright? It's got to be part of something coming. All right, got to be part of something.
And who has a missing person poster in their home?
I don't know. My man is smart though. He got them ick points. So,
is that an electric toothbrush? That's hygiene. That's an investment.
Them steaks, boy.
Oh, the riblets. Oh shit!
Why you gonna throw it away? What the heck?
I know it's red meat, but my dude. You take it easy.
If he's actually trashing that stuff, he's very wasteful. Like, you bought the stuff, then unpackaged it just to throw it away.
It's got to be part of the theory, though, or the conspiracy.
Oh, he's feeding a beast.
The secret Krabby Patty formula. Oh, number 4.
Yo, I'm thrilled right now. Show it to us.
What?
Hold on, who eats?
Wait, so since it's saying number 4, does that mean that there was 3 previous secret Krabby Patty secret formulas?
No, it's gonna be episode 4.
Okay.
4,
But if it's the secret Krabby Patty formula, that's the easiest theory. It's crab meat, right?
Yeah.
It's Mr. Krabs meat. Pause.
Yes, pause indeed.
Yo, I genuinely believe that there's something like he gave meat. Which one of the people in SpongeBob hold like a carnivorous appetite?
What you talking about? Krabby Patty formula? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crab meat because that's why you never see any of his relatives except his mom and Burger King. Like usually, like restaurants have the same name, right? As like what they serve. So the Krusty Krab, and even on the menu of the Krusty Krab, the kelp fries are made out of kelp and like all of that. So
everything,
the Krusty Krab is crab meat, bro. That's the secret formula.
But what he was putting in that bag was red meat. It was like burgers and steaks and everything. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I'm wondering why he put that type of meat into a bag and gave it. So what character in here searches for that? But it was burgers. I don't know if it was burgers like Krusty Krab in the bottle.
I mean, it was steak. He threw steak, but I think it was just symbolic, like as a food.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm reading too much into it. Okay.
Yeah. So I think the next theory is going to be about
Mr. Krabs.
Mr. Krabs, bro, and Mr. Krabs being a what is it when you eat like a cannibal, right?
Yeah.
Cannibalistic.
Yeah. He sells.
Wow. He's selling crabs, so he killing.
Hey, if we're right, put this in the video at the end,
Larry.
right? Put this in the video.
Only reason why I don't think they could be eating Larry is just because he pops up from time to time.
But Larry's a lobster, not a crab.
Yeah.
They're two different.
But
right?
the original, like when it's like a Cancer Zodiac, like it's shaped like a lobster originally before it was a crab.
Oh, for real?
Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. So I don't know if Larry, that it wouldn't be far fetched for it to be Larry. It wouldn't be far fetched for that because they're both crustaceans.
Yeah.
And the original Cancer logo, if you're a Cancer like in the Zodiac, it looked like a lobster before it looked like a crab.
Oh.
So take that from a Cancer.
Listen, that's my prediction for number 4. I'm glad to see we having a number 4, my brother. Let's get it. But, you know what I'm saying? If y'all enjoyed this view crew, make sure y'all smash that like button, hit that sub button. Also, head to my Twitch down below. That way you could join the stream team down there.
Do that. Stay tuned in.
But until next time, we out of here.